Our first speaker is Bethany Townsend. She's a Senior Product Marketing Manager for Disco. And our second speaker is Susan Stirk. She's also a Product Marketing Manager for Disco. And now I'll hand over the mic to them and we'll start with the description of what the agenda is.
Awesome. Hey everyone. As Keith said, my name is Bethany Townsend. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Disco. Before joining Disco, I was a lawyer for a number of years. I graduated from Harvard Law School in 2012 and then practiced from 2012 to 2017 at a couple of different lit boutiques, one in San Francisco called Kecker, Van Nest, and Peters, and then another one in Austin called Reed, Collins, and Sy. So as a first through fifth year associate, I had lots of opportunities to get very familiar with eDiscovery and eDiscovery software. And I am very excited to be at Disco, working to make eDiscovery a little less painful through great software. And Susan, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Bethany. Hi all, my name is Susan Stirk. I'm also a product marketing manager here at Disco, responsible for all the go-to-market motions and adoption of our second product, Disco Case Builder, of which I'll be sharing with you today. I've spent about the last decade helping organizations, including law firms, adopt innovative and disruptive and unique technologies like this one. So looking forward to finding in any way I can ways to help you change the way you practice with innovation like this.
Awesome. Okay, so today we are going to do a quick overview of how Disco rolls out our new features. Then we're going to get into the meat of the presentation, which is what those new features are and what they look like in our product. After that, I'm going to pass it over to Susan, who's going to go over Case Builder, and we're going to finish up with some professional services updates. We have a couple exciting things that have come out there. But before we get into all of that, it would be great to get a better sense of who we have here and what types of things you do. So Keith, you want to kick off our first poll? So it seems like we have a relatively small group here today, which means please ask questions. If you need to take us a little bit off topic to have us show you something that you're interested in, we are more than happy to do that. But let's see what the breakdown looks like.
We'll give a couple more seconds and then I'll end the poll and share the results for everybody. Give one more second. One more person that needs the answer. Okay. And I'll go ahead and share results.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So we have a lot of folks, a lot of paralegals, a lot of lit support professionals, a couple fun others. It'll be exciting to see if they have interesting questions. And now let's go ahead and do our second poll. This one, the new features we're talking about today are primarily related to productions, either directly or indirectly. And so we'd like to get a sense of how and whether you're involved in producing documents.
Okay, I'll give a couple more seconds for everybody to answer. And I'll go ahead and share the results.
Excellent. This is what we want to see today. Everybody here touches productions in some way, so that'll mean the information here is pretty relevant. Okay. So a quick reminder about how Disco rolls out features. So we take new features through a 3-step process. When we are as soon as a feature is sort of ready to get in front of customers, we call that crawl. And rather than releasing it across everyone's database at the same time, we sort of hand select a few customers to really test it out, to make sure it's solving the problem we intended to solve, that it works well. And these customers get early access. And in exchange for that, they sort of partner with us to make sure that the feature we're about to release is as amazing as possible. Then we move things to walk, which means it's available on new matters. And this is important because, there are some features that can interfere with workflows. A lot of them don't, but some do. And before we go ahead and release a feature on an existing matter, we want to make sure that we've done everything we need to do to make sure that it's not going to interrupt anything that you're working on. And then eventually we move our features into run, which means all of the matters in Disco get that new feature. So all of the features we're talking about today are in run. In the future, however, as we're developing more features, if you are interested in potentially being one of those crawl customers and getting early access to things and partnering with us up front, please reach out to us. Our emails will be on the last slide, and we would love to talk to you about doing that work together. Okay, without further ado, our new features. The first one we are going to talk about is native Excel redactions. We are so excited to get this into people's hands because we have heard over and over and over, and I have personal experience, that redacting Excel files in preparation for a production is the worst. It requires all sorts of additional workflows. You're often like drawing things on an image, which is really hard when you're trying to get a column that goes across many pages. And it creates a lot of pain for sort of anyone involved in the process. We, several years ago at this point, initially released our own Excel viewer, which made it possible to review Excels in Disco to do sort of everything you would need to do without having to download the file, and look at it on your computer and potentially mess up the data, or have issues tagging it. And our clients really liked this. But again, we didn't have the ability to add redactions to Excel documents in Disco. If you're going to do that, you still had to sort of draw them on the image. And now, as you can see in this GIF, we have made it super simple to redact Excel files. You can select, certain columns, certain rows, certain cells, and you can add redactions to them in a way that it works exactly how you think it should. And so we are super excited to get this into everyone's hands. We've heard nothing but positive things about it. Right now with this release, you can then produce these Excel files as images, which works for most use cases. Occasionally, you're required to produce Excel files in native, even if you've redacted. And we're working on that functionality. We're working to give our clients the option to produce in native as well as an image, whether it's a PDF or a TIFF. So that is our first exciting feature. The next thing that we are releasing related to sort of the QC side of production is called Family Inconsistency Search. And what this allows you to do is pull up families that have either been consistently or inconsistently coded so that you can QC them more easily. This comes up all the time in productions when, for instance, you're doing a rolling production and you want to find all of the documents, all of the families where everything has been tagged responsive and nothing has been tagged as privileged. Because if you get those families, you can produce them without having to worry about doing additional QC. It's also sometimes important to be able to pull up families that have been inconsistently coded. For instance, where some of the documents have been tagged as privileged and others haven't, because you want to make sure that you can catch those entire families to make sure that you're not producing something that doesn't look like it's privileged on the face of the document, but because of its attachments or because of the email is in fact privileged. We know that people sort of were doing these types of searches, but they had to do them manually. They had to create folders and do sort of complicated search gymnastics to get to essentially get to this result. And so our customers sort of emphasized to us that this was a pain point. And so we were actually able to develop this really quickly. For Disco, we were sort of able to slot it into a team and give folks search syntax that allows them to pull up these documents, with a single search, saving people a lot of time when they're going to produce. And as I'm sure all of you know, that when you're approaching a production deadline, time is of the essence. If we can cut a half an hour out of your workflow at the very end, it might mean that you get your production out at 11:30 instead of 12:01, and that's the difference between hitting your deadline and missing it. We're particularly excited about this because it sort of extends what we think of as our QC suite. Of course, you can sort of do QC through random sampling and sort of other sort of established methods that are aimed at sort of looking at the entire population and maybe catching errors. But what our QC tools allow you to do is do really targeted QC. And to find the documents that are most likely to give you trouble. So we have Family Inconsistency Search now. We also have something called predicted tag changes, which is AI enabled QC that allows you to find documents that have likely been given the wrong tag. And we also have dashboards that allow you to track how things are being tagged in real time. So you can identify, reviewers who might have misunderstood the tagging protocol. And this allows you to catch mistakes early. I'm going to walk through all of these in demo in case you aren't familiar with them. But this is sort of an area where we're really excited to be working because we know that it causes a lot of customer pain. And then finally, our last set of updates are around performance. And the first one, not surprisingly, is around productions. So we have an amazing team that has sort of been dissecting our productions process and figuring out where and how we can make it faster. We know that customers love our production functionality. It's something that they take advantage of, right? They can do productions themselves. They don't have to reach out to a vendor. It's much more simple. You don't have to do 19 different steps. You can sort of, you click, it's like 4 clicks and then your production is run and you get the zip file. And it's always been pretty fast, but what we've done is make it a lot faster. We're sort of identifying areas where we can, sort of parallelize the process on the back end so that, sort of when you hit produce, you get your documents back much faster. And here's what we're seeing after this work in Q4. Over the course of Q4, we saw for large data sets a throughput of about 1,000 pages per second, which is incredibly fast. What that means is for a 1.5 million page production, they went from hitting the produce button to getting the zip file in 25 minutes. That's for big data sets, but also just sort of across the board. When we looked at our data for Q4 so far, 80% of our productions have taken less than 30 minutes. Which just means that you can, have your attorneys work until much closer to the deadline, sort of you have much more time to QC before you actually have to hit, start creating the production so you can get it out the door. We also have spent a lot of time and energy looking at our worst performing productions, right? These are the ones that can cause significant headaches if you didn't give yourself enough time and your production, took a lot longer than you expected it to. So far for our P99, which is sort of our bottom 1% of productions, this quarter, we've made those 12 times faster. So we're really trying to make sure that productions across the board, from the really big ones to the really slow ones, to the really complex ones, maybe you've got a bunch of Excel files that have redactions on them, those sort of take more on the back end to get to a production phase. We want everything to be moving fast. One other performance update that I just want to note, as I'm sure you've all heard us say a number of times, one of the things we care a lot about at Disco is search and how fast search is, because in many other platforms it can take forever. And since Disco has been, for the past many years, we see sub-second search in Disco, no matter how big your database is. But we never sort of rest on our laurels. We're always identifying the features that our users use a lot and trying to make them better. And so this quarter, we identified some engineering inefficiencies on the back end, and we were able to address them. And now search is 20% faster. So it was already fast, but now we're reducing that time even more. One other thing I want to highlight on this slide is our uptime. This quarter, it has been 99.9989%, which is pretty darn good. And we're proud of that. All right, so do we have any questions on sort of that overview before I hop over to the demo?
Nothing yet.
Okay, great. Give me a second to move over. Excellent. Okay. Can everyone see that? All right, I'll take that as a yes. Okay, so this is Disco eDiscovery, the platform you all know and love. The first thing I'm going to show you is native Excel redactions. If I want to get to my Excel files, I have a number of options. I can go over to the filters and I can click on Excel. Here we have a whopping 28,575. So if you had to do a number of redactions across many of those, our functionality would save you, would be a huge boon. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at a folder of Excel files. I'm going to clear out of this. Take a look at a folder of Excel files that we have grabbed for you. So let's go ahead and pop into one of them. So this is our Excel viewer, right? You have the ability to, move through cells however you want. You can go between sheets, you can scroll. And as you can see, a number of my colleagues have already drawn redactions on these spreadsheets. But if I wanted to go ahead and draw one myself, I could come down here to edit redactions. And all I would have to do is select things. I'd select it, do it again, I'd select something, I'd click redact, the redaction pops up. I could give it a redaction reason, let's say confidential, and I would hit save. And that's it. That is the entire process for doing redactions. I could also redact an entire column if I wanted to. I'm gonna X out of that. And I also have the ability to do things like redact charts and graphs. So I can just grab that, redact the image, the redaction reason that I've been using pops up, confidential. I hit save and I'm done. I feel like this demo sort of undersells the value of this feature, but I hope that, right, because it's so straightforward and easy. But I hope that, I'm able to convey sort of the value that this adds. One other thing to note that we are excited about is, in this case, I can look up here and I can see that this Excel file has a Bates number, which means that it was already produced. And so if I want to see what that production image looked like, okay, let's go on that. I can just click over, click on that Bates number and it pulls out the produced view. And as you can see, it looks exactly how you would expect it to, exactly how you'd want it to look. We have sort of the charts redacted, we have the, some columns redacted, and the redaction reason is right on the face of the image. And as I mentioned, yes?
Sorry, there's one question around whether the text is scrubbed from the text file upon production.
Oh, yes, it is. Much like sort of the way we allow you to do, yes, it translates on. It works how you would expect it to and how you need it to work. If you redact it in the Excel file, the redacted text will not show up when you go to produce. Awesome. Okay, that is native Excel redactions. Now let me show you family inconsistency search. So I'm going to go ahead and change up my view here. This is a view you might want to use if you were QCing your documents, right? You'd want to know what had been tagged responsive, non-responsive, and what had various privileged tags. If I wanted to, for instance, pull up all documents that had been tagged as responsive, but had inconsistent tags for privilege, I could go ahead. Here's my search. I've saved it. Tag responsive and family inconsistent tag, either attorney client or work product. Those are my two privileged tags. And I've turned on family search. So now what I have here are families that fit that search. So I've got 3 different families. Let me make my screen a little bit bigger. I've got 3 different families here that have been tagged, where some of the family members at least have been tagged as responsive, but they have inconsistent privilege tags, right? So particularly like this document here, this Excel file was attached to an email that was tagged as privileged. And so I want to make sure that I catch this family and I don't inadvertently produce this Excel file, even though it might not have appeared to be privileged on the face, right? And we have a lot of customers when they're doing, privilege reviews or responsiveness reviews, they aren't doing them with the entire family, they're doing them at the document level. This makes things way more straightforward for reviewers and also allows them to use AI. If you're using Disco AI, it's going to be able to find, it's going to notice the, identify the characteristics of the documents you're tagging as responsive or privileged or whatever it is, and bubble up more documents like that. If you do things at the family level, it complicates that and you don't get quite as good AI results. So because of that, it's particularly important that you can use these tools to, that you can use family inconsistency search, sort of identify these families. One other thing I want to point out, if you can't remember the search syntax, we've got something for you, which is Search Builder. I imagine most of you are using Search Builder pretty frequently. But to the extent you want help building these searches, you can just start typing in consistency. There we go. And you can use Search Builder to create these tags. So let's say I'm going to clear this off up here. And I want to be able to identify all documents where the entire family has been consistently tagged as responsive. You know, I can just use this little caret. I don't even have to know how to spell responsive, and I can click on it. I can see that there are 16 results. I can run that search, and it pulls up all those families for me. And this is really convenient if, for instance, you're looking for families where everything has been tagged responsive because you've got a rolling production and you want to be able to get those families out the door, right? If everything's been tagged as responsive, particularly if none of them have been tagged as privileged, that's a set of documents you can definitely produce. Okay. Any questions about family inconsistency search before I touch on some of those other QC capabilities?
No questions.
Okay, excellent. So let's get into the next one, which is our AI powered QC. So hopefully some of you are using Disco AI already, but if you're not, the way Disco AI works, it doesn't involve any complicated workflow. There's no seed sets. It simply looks at the way that you're tagging documents, and it recommends more documents like the ones that you're tagging, sort of based on those document characteristics. It's a lot like a Netflix recommendation algorithm, right? It's like paying attention to what you're doing, and it's recommending things based on that behavior. So with Disco AI, you can use it to find, the documents that you're looking for during your initial review. Here, I've got my predicted tags over in my filters, and I can see I've been tagging documents for broadband. I have a bunch of predictions based on the tags that I've just been doing during my normal review. So if I wanted to, find more documents related to broadband, I would find this highly likely box here. I'd click on it, and now I have 1,800 documents out of our, I think it's like 450,000 that are related to broadband for me to review without having to do any searching, without having to really know what keywords to look for. This is a great way to prioritize your review to find the documents you're looking for faster. And now we've taken this sort of one step further with predicted tag changes. What predicted tag changes looks for are documents where a reviewer has given it one tag and Disco AI disagrees. It thinks it shouldn't have gotten that tag. So I'm going to show you this in the context of broadband. Enron sort of had two lines of business. It had its oil and gas business, which was its bread and butter, what it made its name in. And then later it started picking up sort of internet technology as well. So broadband, essentially. And let's say I wanted to make a production related to broadband, but I didn't want to include any energy or oil and gas content. I could take a look at this predicted to be removed, right? So this is a set of 24 documents where Disco AI recommends that they not receive the tag broadband, but they were tagged as broadband by the reviewer. So if I select them, they get pulled up. And I can take a look at this one. I see that this is an agreement with Talisman Energy, which doesn't sound like a broadband company. So I could go ahead and remove that tag. And then when I go to produce documents, this one would not be included. The last thing I want to show you before I hand this over to Susan and Case Builder is our dashboards that allow you to sort of catch reviewers that might be tagging incorrectly in real time. And so these dashboards are available if you're using review stages. So I can go ahead and open up review stages. And then sort of if I have a review going on, I will be able to take advantage of these dashboards. So the dashboards will show you things like how long we expect your review to take based on reviewer speeds. You can sort of make some decisions about whether you want to include weekends or not. But then the really fun stuff, I think, starts with these tag rates by reviewer. And so what we're seeing here is sort of each of these little dots show you how frequently reviewers are giving certain tags to certain documents. So for instance, I can see over here that this reviewer is tagging 27% of documents to be responsive, where most of its peers are not. If I want to, I can sort of drill down into this in a table form. And what this shows me is the outliers that are sort of highlighted in orange. So this reviewer is using the tag financial audit on 27% of documents, whereas its peers are doing like 3, 12, 10. And so what this suggests to me is that this reviewer might not understand the review protocol. I can see that for the rest of the tags, this reviewer is in range. The reviewer is probably, trying their best. They're doing a good faith effort. They're not doing things randomly, but they didn't understand this one particular tag. And so if I'm looking at this, like, during the first or second day of review, it allows me to go in, talk to that reviewer, do any retraining that I need to do on the front end so that QC, so that I'm not stuck. I don't find all of this at QC at the back end, and then have to redo a bunch of documents. So collectively, we hope that these things make your production experience much easier, much smoother, where you're doing a lot of work on the front end and not having to scramble at the last second. Alrighty. I think that's actually all that I have in the product. Of course, happy to go in depth with any of you on this in the future if you're interested.
The only question we have, Bethany, is whether the family inconsistency search is available across all databases, or just is it in crawl?
Oh, it's across all databases. Yes.
Okay.
It's available both Search Syntax and in Search Builder.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Bethany. So I'll be talking today about updates to Disco Case Builder, and I thought the best way to speak about these would actually be to show you within a workflow that you might undergo yourself if you're reviewing depositions and ultimately preparing the resulting work product for use in motions or at trial. So we're just going to hop into the platform here first. So for the uninitiated, real quickly, I'll kind of give you a 30,000-foot jump into what we're going to look at here. Case Builder is our second software product as a company, and it's really our first step outside of the immediate e-discovery set of problems that we try to help you solve, in that on our way to hopefully becoming your system of record, really the legal operating system into which you log in every morning before you even had your coffee, no matter where you are in the life of the matter. We actually just decided to start here with collaborative deposition review and the preparation of that work product for trial or motions, simply because we didn't see other companies investing quite as intentionally or strategically in solving this particular problem set in a manner that case teams would actually use and prefer. So we see very often that a number of our clients are very advanced in that they've adopted really advanced technologies in other parts of their practice, and yet when it comes to reviewing depositions and creating a case strategy out of the evidence that they find there, they're stuck printing things out or using a PDF viewer at most, maybe using a legacy case management program that they may have had in-house for quite some time. And so we thought we might apply the same sort of Disco magic experience here into deposition review and case management as we do on the e-discovery side. It has just occurred to me that I did blow by the poll that we should have done just now. Keith, do you want to pull that up, or I can just kind of speak through those points?
I just shared it.
Awesome.
And the question is, what do you use to review deposition transcripts in video? And we'll give everybody a second to answer. Give everybody about 5 more seconds. All right, go ahead and end and then share the results.
All right. Okay, so looks like we have a good mix here across all different methods, from paper printouts and Post-it notes to PDF viewers, like I mentioned, some maybe more legacy case management products like CaseMap or Case Notebook, and then a few folks that don't review depos. So this is good. This will help us focus on the right stuff here in the product. So the first thing you're going to see if you have Case Builder is what we hope is a very simple but powerful concept of having a single searchable place in the cloud for all the depots in your case. So these could be depots you took, depots you defended, party and non-party witnesses. And then what we wanted to do was surface what we hope is just the right amount of work product that'll help you figure out where you might want to spend your time. What are some of the key storylines that seem to be developing, or narratives or themes in your case? And then conversely, are there any kind of red flags for us in terms of strategy? Are there any gaps or things we need to look out for? And so a few ways we wanted to do that would be to surface something like a case impact assessment for each deposition. So you can apply this and say, overall, we believe Richard Boss' deposition to be very helpful to our case. You'll also see over here a kind of a summary or roll-up view of all the different places in each transcript that your team collectively would have made a highlight and added a tag or an annotation. And so in lieu of the highlighters and sticky notes you might be using, if you're one of the folks using either paper printouts or even PDF in a PDF viewer, this would be tagging that you can apply at the excerpt level when you're making a highlight. And then for each and every one of those, you're also able to assess, do we think this particular mention of this tag is helpful, harmful, or maybe neutral or informational about our case? And so this will roll up for you automatically and hopefully provide you with a view of overall what you think the key themes are and where you might be running into trouble. So for example, here with Richard, he is an expert in odor and pollution analysis. Therefore, I'm not shocked to see that there are more mentions of odor than anything else, but perhaps what might interest me is that my team seems to collectively think a good chunk of those excerpts that they've highlighted are harmful to us. And so maybe I want to jump specifically to those moments of testimony to understand why that is, or see that we think he's fairly impeachable for some reason. Another way we can figure out where we might want to spend our time and where we might find key pieces of evidence here is with search. And what we've heard a lot from hundreds of clients that we spoke with when we were initially designing Case Builder was simply that searching within and across depositions is really tricky. If you have paper, you can't do it. Obviously, you have to kind of flip through binders and hope you can find what you're looking for. If you're in a PDF viewer, you're limited to what a Control F keyword search can do for you. You have to hope that the thing you thought of was exactly the way the deponent uttered it and exactly the way the court reporter ultimately transcribed it. And so there's always a risk that you might be missing something complicated, or that you just have to do a lot of rework and rereading in order to find something that you need. And so we wanted to enable you, much the way that you might in eDiscovery, to use almost like a Westlaw or LexisNexis style search syntax so that you're freed from keywords alone. So the way we might use that here is say, I'm interested in understanding all the different ways that different deponents answered a question about water contamination. I'm writing a Daubert motion and I want to see those responses. So instead of searching water contamination in quotes and hoping that that was uttered exactly, we can say, show me water within 3 words of the street contam. And right away, we're going to understand, there could have been 100 depots here, and here are the 4 I'm interested in. It doesn't just stop with the transcript text itself. Case Builder also allows you to run this sort of search with the work product you may have applied already, which is another reason that concept like the tagging at the excerpt level is really important and hopefully helps you get more value out of your work product throughout the life of your matter. So for example, we could run a search here to say, show me all my expert testimony about the following topics that we believe is helpful or very helpful to our case. Without further ado, though, everything seems to keep pointing me to an interest in Richard's deposition. So maybe we hop in here to take a look at some of the excerpts that kind of jumped out at me there. I saw a good number about odor, and then quite a few that we thought were bad for us. It also looks like we got a couple of hits for that water contamination search that we ran. So there it is. Don't have to sift through hundreds of pages or several hours of video. We ultimately have a very easy way to really help those proverbial sticky notes come alive. Another area that we heard quite a bit, that came up quite a bit when we were speaking with clients about this process, is how they use video, or rather how they don't use video. And overarchingly, what we heard is there's a lot of value, of course, in being able to see and hear and watch the way that a deponent might deliver some testimony, but actually making use of that video is both prohibitively expensive quite often and also just a challenge technologically. It might be languishing on a DVD in a desk drawer until the eve of trial, where you're just digging it out to look at that one designation or something to that effect. And so we wanted the ability to use video to be almost a non-decision. It's something that we feel you should be able to take advantage of from the beginning of your case as much as you like. And so if you upload a video and a transcript to Case Builder, what's actually going to happen is we're going to automatically synchronize them for you. And we don't charge for that service. And so you're always able to review with complete context the transcript that you have here, the video if you took one, and any work product that your team may have applied. We could also pull up anything that the deponent was shown as well. And we understand, particularly in an era where we're all working from home now, you may have a different kind of workstation setup than you might at your firm. And so the option to kind of set this up however you prefer without opening 3 or 4 or 5 different applications or pulling out another binder to review something like an exhibit, you always have the option to set this up however you like. We could pop this out into its own window, and we could do the same here with Richard's video.
Susan, one question we have is, do you need the video? Is a video required? I guess is the question.
No, you're welcome to use, if it was, you would just see a blank spot here, but it would still, you're still able to use Case Builder to apply all of this.
Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, just so you can see how that might work. Let's say, you know, this particular line of questioning interests me because it looks like it's bad for us and I want to understand why that is. We could, I'm going to share my sound here so you can see that, just to hear what Richard has to say for himself.
Have you ever talked to any of the neighbors in the area?
I have not.
Have you talked to any of the investigators from the city of Houston?
I may have talked to them in the past, but not relative to this matter.
Okay.
Well, I'm not an attorney. I imagine you're looking for eyebrows and smirks and, you know, sweat on the brow and all of that kind of stuff. So needless to say, if you are looking for those sorts of things, it should be easy for you to do. About the tagging itself, and this is where we're getting into a couple of updates to Case Builder. Let's say there are a couple of things here that I wanted to add. Maybe there's a note I want to leave for my colleagues, or maybe a tag that I think applies here as well. I can certainly just click to add any one of those, as well as sort of a helpful, harmful designation. But what's new is my ability to create a new tag on the fly. So if you found, you know, oh, we don't actually have one for counter designations, that's something you don't have to go back out of the transcript to go do. We could also create a group for them if we think that makes sense as well. So we don't want to kind of break your flow if you feel this is something that you want to do as you're going along. We've also exposed the definitions that your team may have agreed on to apply to each tag. So almost the rules for, you know, if this, then apply this tag. This is really helpful in particular if you've come back to a case you haven't worked on in a while and don't remember the tagging protocol, or want to ensure that you're using these tags in the same kind of way that your colleagues are as well. I should note as well that you're always able to open them here. They're going to roll up automatically and kind of total as you go. This is also something that updates live. And so if you and your colleagues are both in here, you know, annotating at the same time, you're not going to overwrite each other. That's kind of the beauty of this being a cloud native application. So you're always going to get kind of a live read on where there might be hotspots in the transcript. So we understand one of our 2 main focuses of this past release was on things like this, you know, making it easier for you to more strategically apply and efficiently apply and work product that you're creating as you go. But where we heard really the most pain from most of our clients in terms of, you know, this entire process of finding all this evidence and preparing it for later is in getting work product like this out of a platform like Case Builder so that it could be presented at trial, maybe copy pasted into a motion, you know, filed with opposing counsel as a designations table, maybe developed as a deposition summary to provide a client, or maybe to brief a trial attorney with that wasn't at the depots, those sorts of things. And so there's a few ways we've tried to automate for you some of the more painful and manual parts of that kind of preparation. To give you an example, maybe I'm writing an MSJ, and this is a particular passage that I'd like to use. We know from all the horror stories that we hear from so many of our clients that the process of copy pasting this out without taking all the line numbers along and all the other line breaks that are going to occur, and then applying the right Blue Book formatting is kind of a nightmare. It might be something that takes you know, all night, all weekend in order to do, and yet there's really no one else who can do that for you. So we've actually baked the Blue Book rules directly into this option. So it's really the equivalent of a copy, you know, Control-C or however you have that set up on your keyboard. And then if we head over here, you're actually going to see if we just do a simple paste, so no other monkey shines, so that we get exactly what we want and nothing we don't want. The blocking, the Q&A, and the citation. So just one way we're trying to make this entire process easier. We know there are some others that you might not want to kind of format or write in yourself. To look at a few examples of those here today and to kind of get at another update that we've made to Case Builder are some ways that you can, with a single click, export some of these work products in very commonly requested formats. One might be if I say you want to pull just the highlighted portions of your transcript, and again, make use of those tags, just the affirmative designations, for example, we can do that. We don't have to do any extra work to get something that looks really nice and is easy for someone to digest who wasn't there. And so something like that would look like this. You get your page line, you see where it occurs in the transcript, and you have the ability to understand what the team's thought process is behind what they've applied. This might also be where you can kind of honor the requests that a particular judge might have for things like the colors that you use to highlight counter designations or something to that effect by using the color codes here. We could also, I'll actually flip over here into Word again, use that same kind of prompt to say, I just want the table for these designations. And if we head over into Word, it's going to look like this. So just another example of something that you don't have to go manually find, all the page lines for each of these. One of the two updates that we've made to the exports is along the lines of a couple of common requests we get. We know for a lot of case teams, there's a desire to create a timeline or a chronology of these facts and all the evidence to support them. And so there's a number of different tools you might use to do that. But some folks are actually most commonly, and maybe this should be poll number 4, is that folks will use Excel or another spreadsheet application to do that. So now when you export anything from Case Builder, you're also going to get the CSV version that will just give you all the stuff you want already kind of copy pasted into the cells that you might use to create a timeline like that. Maybe the most exciting of all is the ability to now pull a clip list for use in a trial presentation tool. So what it's going to do is, this file will be optimized for use in any of OnCue, Trial Director, Sanction, whatever you're using for trial presentation, such that you can effectively automate clip creation in those platforms. So you don't have to do any extra work in order to get both the sync file, again, not something that we're charging for, unlike you might be accustomed to from a court reporter, any video files associated with this, as well as any exhibits. So because most of those applications that we would be doing this editing in are Windows only, I have a video recording of doing this on a Windows machine that I can share to kind of cap this off today. So you'll see that these would be the files that you get from Case Builder. Here's a sync file. We have the clip list export that's new, and then the videos of the depot itself. And really the process from here, this might be something that your trial tech does. And so understand if it's not quite so interesting if you're not the one in charge of this, but this is really just a series of drag and drops. There's no manual formatting or coding that you need to do. All of this is already time coded for you, such that, as you'll see in a second here, once you've kind of done the drag and drop of putting those video files where OnCue expects them to be, you can now pull up all of those clips. They were automatically created in OnCue. And then you can go right from there into your video editor. So just to take us home here, there's a couple of focuses we're always thinking about is how can we help you get more value out of work you're already doing and thinking you're already applying to the key pieces of testimony that you find within your depositions, and then what are ways that makes it even easier for you to use those and make a more powerful case, no matter where you're doing that, whether this is trial, mediation, arbitration, other hearings, prepping a witness for something or a client. This is all the kind of support that we want to provide here in Case Builder. That is it for me. Bettany, I can hand it back to you to talk about professional services unless there's other questions right now.
No other questions.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. Let me get this going right now. Great. I'm going to share my screen and gonna hit present. All right. Yes, we're going to wrap up just touching on professional services quickly. So just a quick reminder, DISCO has a full suite of professional services, anything you need from project management to forensics collections to manage review. We do it all. We're going to highlight a nice migration story later today. And what we think is really great about we're one of the only people that really offer technology and services under the same roof. And we think this is really great because it allows us to offer, solutions, not just one piece of the puzzle. If you have a production, if you've got 1 million documents and you need to make a production in 3 weeks, we can either give you the technology, or we can say, what else do you need from us? That could be a full-scale managed review, or that could just be a project manager to help you with workflows to ensure you can make it through those documents in time, and sort of anything in between. And one of our new fun innovations related to forensic collections this quarter is our remote collection kit for mobile devices. So, as many of you probably know, it can be very challenging to collect data, particularly from Android devices. There's no sort of easy cloud backup that you can do remotely. And so historically what you would do is you would send a forensics examiner to go meet your custodians, and while they were there, they would, take the data off their Android device. However, with COVID, it's no longer as good of an idea to put people in the same room. So some of our clients were talking about how their custodians would have to literally mail their phone somewhere. And as I'm sure you all know, it is challenging to get someone to part with their phone. So what we've created is this remote collection kit. What it is sort of everything, all the hardware that you need to collect from a mobile device. We ship it to the custodian. One of our forensics examiners gets on a Zoom call with them, and they walk them through how to hook everything up. It comes with a laptop that is actually going to do the collection. They walk them through how to hook everything up, how to actually perform the collection themselves. And of course, they're observing the whole time to make sure that it's done correctly. Once it's done, the custodian unplugs everything and ships the kit back to us with, the prepaid postage that's already on there. And this ensures that you can collect from custodians without having to actually put people in the same room, and without having to make your custodian actually give up their device. And so we are incredibly excited to, be able to meet one of the new fun challenges with COVID, in a way that is going to make things easier, both for our, the people that are using our software, our direct clients, as well as the custodians that they're working with. And then one final thing I want to just highlight is a really awesome migration that happened this quarter. So we had a brand new corporate client sign up with us. They are sort of one of the many companies that are dealing with some COVID-related litigation, and they had a ton of data that was with a vendor. And once they all moved remote, once both the corporation and all of their outside counsel were working remotely, it just became impossible to really access the data and do what they needed to do. So they, came to Disco and they asked, what can we do? How do we fix this? And so we, over the course of 4 weeks, helped them migrate 6.8 terabytes of data into our platform. And that was through a really close collaboration with our team and their vendor. We were able to isolate the priority data. There was about 1.2 terabytes of that data, and help them segregate it in the new databases so it would be easy to identify. And then for those of you who are familiar with Google Vault instances, this is a number that our data ops team wanted to highlight, that we collected from 23 Google Vault instances over the course of 4 weeks. And that's how long it took us to go from when we were engaged to when the data was up in new databases. It was 4 weeks. And something that we heard, particularly from from their outside counsel who's in the database, is that it just felt seamless. They logged into the new databases, everything that they wanted was there, all of their work product, but now they were in Disco, which was a much better experience. So if any of you are dealing with sort of challenges in other places and want help getting your data into Disco, we are here to support you in any way that we can. All right. That's what I've got. I'll let Keith hop on to close us out.
Cool. Thank you, Bethany. What I wanted to do is just highlight that our email addresses are on this particular slide. So if you have questions for Bethany or Susan, feel free to email them directly. If you just have general questions about Disco, you can email me at schroet@csdisco.com. And if I can't answer the question, then I'll direct you to the right person, and we'll make sure that we get a response back. But remember, we are recording this webinar. So typically it takes me about 24 hours to turn around the video and get the post email out. So we'll try and get it out hopefully by tomorrow afternoon, or the latest would be probably Monday morning. It just kind of matters what time we get the video edited and turn it around. But we definitely appreciate you guys spending your afternoon with us. We'll have another product webinar scheduled probably sometime in the first part of March, because we do try and do this quarterly. But again, if you have any questions between that time and now, feel free to email us directly. And with that, we'll go ahead and end today's webinar. Thank you. I appreciate your time.